Hey you lot, and welcome to another episode of News You Might Have Missed. I'm your host Tom Lord, and on this show we look at a mighty mix of eclectic excerpts ranging from news outlets, blogs and tabloid rags based around the globe. On today's show we've got sleeping man stung in testicles by a scorpion at Las Vegas resort, a German man has got vaccinated against corona at least 134 times, and an airport in Washington DC has received 7,000 complaints from one person. But first, a man went to the hospital for gallbladder surgery only to get an accidental vasectomy. According to Odyssey Central, an Argentinian man got the shock of his life after undergoing what he thought was surgery on his gallbladder, only to later learn that doctors had performed a vasectomy instead. The original operation was scheduled for Tuesday 28th of February, but due to circumstances outside the man's control, it was rescheduled for the next Wednesday. But that seemingly insignificant change is apparently what caused this issue. On the day of the surgery, no one asked the man a single thing, and they didn't bother checking his chart either. They just performed the type of surgery that they had scheduled for that day, a vasectomy. When the man woke up, he was shocked to find he'd undergone a vasectomy, but he could only think about it for a small amount of time, as he was actually then put in for the surgery he was supposed to get in the first place. George, the patient himself, said, "It is very strange because my chart said gallbladder everywhere. All they had to do was read it. You didn't have to be a scientist to figure it out, and did a completely made up scenario that I've just made up. I think it went down a bit like this. John, cut that lad's gallbladder out. Cut that lad's ball bag out. Yeah, no trouble, will do." A US Air Force employee is charged with giving away state secrets via a dating site. According to ABC News, the Justice Department says a civilian US Air Force employee has been charged with transmitting classified information about Russia's war with Ukraine on an online dating platform. David Franklin Slater shared details about military targets and Russian capabilities to a woman claiming to live in Ukraine. The woman David was speaking to in Ukraine is said to have described him as "my secret informant love." Slater himself was a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel assigned to US Strategic Command at Offutt Air Base. This man is obviously A, an idiot, B, completely besotted. The phrase, "I get so horny when people tell me the locations of missile launchers," should have been a bit of a giveaway. A sleeping man was stung in the testicles by a scorpion at a Las Vegas resort. Upon investigation in his trouser area, Michael Farchi then found the source of his pain. "I went to the restroom and saw a scorpion hanging out my underwear. Look at that! No!" Farchi had no idea how the scorpion got into his hotel room, but he filed a report with the Venetian Las Vegas resort, saying that he'd been bitten by a scorpion on his groin/testicles. Farchi's even considering legal action, and his attorney has said it's been a source of trauma for his client. So in this case, it's not just the house favour on the roulette table that really stung. An Australian man has had his jobseekers payments suspended after recovering from brain surgery. According to The Guardian, Mark, a Victoria-based welfare recipient, had his payments suspended by his job agency in April last year, and at the time he was also homeless. And a letter from Services Australia says his payment was stopped because he did not go to or was late for an appointment arranged by his provider, and there is no regulation requiring employment agencies to speak to people before suspending their payments. The payments were suspended by Services Australia, even though Mark had sent in a medical certificate saying that at the time he was undergoing surgery for a brain tumour. And because the medical certificate took several weeks to process, he was cut off before it was approved. And it took 6 weeks to get his payments reinstated. Sounds like whoever stopped these payments needs brain surgery themselves. What next? Disabled people getting their disability payments removed just because they don't look disabled? A guinea pig has been abandoned at a London tube station with a note asking for a new owner. According to The Guardian, staff at Canning Town Station discovered the guinea pig, which has been named Disco Pig, alone inside a cage with a piece of paper taped to it. The RSPCA has described the dumping of the pet an incredibly cruel thing to do, and I agree. The RSPCA said the rodent's about 6 to 12 months old, and being alone it had been left in a vulnerable situation and needed to be around other guinea pigs. But the guinea pig himself seemed healthy and well cared for. The RSPCA Centre have also said, "It's very sad that someone has abandoned their pet this way, but it will soon be available for rehoming, along with a mate." Not the usual rodent that's seen on the tube then. Normally it's a foot-long sewer rat, with an expired Oyster card and a penchant for Pret-a-Manger. A German man has been vaccinated against corona at least 134 times. A 62-year-old man from Magdeburg deliberately got 217 COVID-19 jabs over the span of 29 months. According to the journal Lancet Infectious Diseases, they concluded that while he had hyper-vaccinated himself, it did not result in any adverse health effects. It also did not significantly improve or worsen his immune response. Apparently, of the 217 jabs that the man is said to have taken, only 134 were actually backed up with official documentation, the other 83 being self-reported. Dr. Emily Miller said, "This is a really unusual case of someone having that many COVID vaccines, but the man did not report any vaccine-related side effects and has not had COVID to this date." This is evidenced by repeated antigen and PCR testing between May 2022 and November 2023. But Dr. Killian Schober, who authored a new study about the situation, said, "The benefit is not much bigger if you get vaccinated 3 times or 200 times. How did no one notice? Surely he must have gone to the vaccination centre and medically trained nurses must have seen his arm look like a pincushion." A hand grenade has been found with other items at a Tilburg thrift store. According to RTL News, the police believe it's a real explosive, but do not assume it was a deliberate action, as the grenade was handed in a box with other second-hand items. The police have said, "We have no indication of a targeted attack. We really want to emphasise that." The police were alerted around 1:30 in the afternoon on March the 4th, when the employee of the Tilburg thrift store found the grenade. An employee said, "When the things were unpacked this afternoon, someone saw that there was a grenade in the box. Fortunately, it's not easily impressed by anything, so everyone stayed calm, and the manager called the police." A police explosives expert said that the pin was still in it, but the police still immediately removed all employees and customers, and the entire building was evacuated. Glad they found it before somebody got hurt. But can you imagine if you'd have thrifted that costume for a party and you didn't notice? "Oh, what's this?" You'd certainly make a noisy entrance. A 17-year-old German digital nomad has been living on a train for 1.5 years. According to Business Insider, 17-year-old Lassie Stolly lives on Deutsche Bahn's ICE trains and travels 1,000 kilometers through Germany every day. This is all down to his €4,000 travel card, which means he travels in first class all the time, sleeps on night trains, and eats breakfast in the DB lounges. There are some disadvantages though. Privacy when living on a train doesn't exist at all. But he has a lot of freedom, and he can decide every day where he wants to go, whether to the Alps, to a big city or the sea. He said he's completely flexible. Sounds pretty good then. I mean, all that time living on trains must have its ups and downs. But I think from the outset this lad is having a wheelie good time. Police respond to reports of a decapitated woman, only to find a sex doll in a sleeping bag. According to New.nl, officers in Tilburg recently had to respond to a strange report. A spokesperson said, "At that moment, the alarm bells didn't go off for us. We don't often get those kinds of reports, but that's what our local police officers will do. After all, you never know, we may be dealing with a real death." The spokesperson went on to say that everything had gone through the minds of the officers that were assigned to that report. But once there, it turned out that there was no human body in the sleeping bag, but a sex doll. The spokesperson further said, "Because we are followed by many young people on Instagram, we have blurred out certain body parts. And these types of dumps don't happen often. Maybe the owner was ready for something else and dumped this doll. And apparently, the sex doll could be picked up at the police station if the owner regrets dumping the doll." Further to that, I'm sure anybody could pick this sex doll up. It's not like they know specifically who the owner is. I mean, it might be a bit used and it probably would need a pretty serious washout, but... A man is suspected of crawling under beds to film passengers on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. According to RTL News, a 34-year-old cruise ship employee secretly filmed guests in their rooms. He hid under beds and also placed cameras in the bathrooms. The man had worked on board the cruise ship since December 2023. He was a cleaner and one of his duties was to change the towels in the bathrooms. And that's where he got the opportunity. He hid under beds to film the guests, placed cameras in bathrooms, and admitted that he mainly targeted girls around 16, with the youngest victim being 10 years old. Pretty obviously, Royal Caribbean immediately fired the man after they found out about this behaviour. The company also said that this behaviour is completely unacceptable. Sod that, firing's way not enough. Do it the old-fashioned way on ships. 6-foot plank, long drop to the seafloor, all is forgiven. An airport in Washington DC has received 7,000 complaints from just one person. According to Jalopnik, This household's complaints to Reagan National Airport made up 78% of the noise complaints made against it. This information comes from a tweet by Alex Stapp, who outlined a number of airports and outlined the number of noise complaints that those airports have had. It found that 6,852 complaints were made by just 2 individuals in a single household. These are the sort of people that would move near a car park and be surprised about the noise of cars. A woman who described herself as being too sick to walk was caught doing a sub 30-minute 5k run. Perth Sheriff Court said Annette Bond spent nearly a decade conning taxpayers out of £67,000. She claimed she was severely impaired by her diagnosis of MS in 2004, and the woman's mother told the jury that her daughter exercised regularly to fight the condition. Jurors were then shown a video of the woman leaving her Perthshire home and doing the 5k run around her local town. The DWP team eventually quit surveillance early because they'd gathered so much damning evidence against her. Scott Hodge investigating said, "She's walking briskly and then turns at a junction and then begins to run." The man then went ahead of the subject and captured footage of her running across the road back into Stanley. He said it would have been hills, ascents and descents at various different parts of the journey. And they used an internet website to ascertain the distance. The estimated distance run was 4,800 metres. But on her claim form she stated, "I prefer someone with me at all times when I'm outdoors because I have poor balance. There is a risk of falling and dizzy spells." But the investigator said she had completed the runs without any support from anyone else and had not been unsteady on her feet and did not appear to be impaired. I bet she will feel dizzy when the law takes her benefits off her, gives her a criminal record and tells her she has to pay back the £67,000 with interest. A funeral director has been given 3.5 years prison time for transporting the chemicals needed to make drugs in his hearse. According to NOS, police saw the hearse driving on the highway near Bergen in May last year. Officers noticed that the car was heavily loaded and they took it off the road. In the cargo space of the hearse, they found 675 kilos of chemicals that can be used to make methamphetamine. A drug lab was later found in a Rotterdam funeral home. Barrels, stoves and pans were all in the same building that people had come to say goodbye to their loved ones. But during the hearing, the man denied he had anything to do with the drug lab. He also stated he did not know what he was transporting when he was arrested on the highway. Although the prosecution services demanded 6 years in prison for the man, the final 3.5-year sentence was much lower. They also wanted him to not be able to work in the funeral industry for 11 years. The judge called this understandable, but he said he could not impose that because the Opium Act did not deal with that. I'm not being funny, but how bad of a funeral director do you need to be that you have to start making drugs to earn money? He must have had all the grace of a house brick through the window and started every conversation with, "So, who's dead then?" Heavily armed police raid on a motorcycle club turns out to be a kids' party. According to New.nl, the police raided a business complex in Welwick on Friday evening because it was suspected that firearms were present at a motorcycle club. Once there, it turned out to be a children's party. Although the kids' party had been arranged by the motorcycle club, they found no firearms present, and yet they were heavily armoured. There were about 35 to 40 adults present, and the kids present were around 4 to 10-year-old. But the police said that they did not know that children were present, and the adults should have all sat on the floor with their hands behind their heads. But people who did not cooperate quickly enough were thrown to the ground. The only thing police found was a bit of hard drugs in small user quantities, but Captain Lutgers criticised the actions of the officers. So many police, so much show of force, those firearms, the long wait, all those children freaked out. Then they were finally outside with the women, and they all had to be photographed extensively. Those boys of mine were in real shock. They barely slept all night. So, a load of scarred kids and a waste of time. Well played, police. And to be honest, with the small amount of drugs that they found, it sounds like less gear than a British funeral. A customer who dunked his head into a barrel of pickles at a New Jersey deli has handed himself in. According to Penn Live, police didn't identify the man who walked into Heritage Dairy Stores on Main Street in Glassboro, who then recorded the stunt and then took off. A spokesperson from Glassboro Police said, "We certainly relish in the community's help when trying to identify the young man involved in the incident at the Heritage store in town." Glassboro Police further said, "We are happy to report that he personally called and took responsibility for his actions." This is due to a day earlier, police sharing images of the pickle dunking culprit on social media as they tried to find the man who forced the store to get rid of $52 in pickles. The police have also said, "We're withholding the video he took since he was apparently videoing the incident himself on his cell phone, probably for likes, and we do not want to give him more attention than he deserves." No idea on sentencing just yet, but considering it's just for likes, he's unnecessarily put himself in a right pickle. An 11-year-old boy has been arrested for driving a stolen BMW and towing a caravan on the M1 motorway. According to the BBC, an 11-year-old boy was found behind the wheel when police pulled over an X5 towing a suspected stolen caravan on the M1. North Yorkshire Police then arrested the boy on suspicion of theft, burglary and motoring offences including dangerous driving. Police had received a call about the stolen caravan around about 3:30 in the afternoon and that it had been stolen from a caravan site near Thirsk. The police have said that 45 minutes after the caravan was reported stolen, we stopped the vehicle on the M1 after it left the A1 at Hookmore Interchange near Garforth. The boy has been released on conditional bail with further inquiries being carried out. Police also found a selection of registration plates when they searched the vehicle. Wow, kids are obviously starting very young with the old crime. Straight to Grand Theft Auto. Maybe they should start with like crisps or Freddos. I mean, he's obviously not very good at it. I'm not saying you should do that, but you know, if you're gonna. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe if you do so fancy. Also, if you think there's any news that we might have missed, please get in contact on the email below. See you next time for another jam-packed news you might have missed. Stay gravy.